Um, I guess we're in California for most of you. Today we are speaking about the wine, and you think about why have huge history. They have, of course, long history of making great wines, great food, great people, sparkling wine, and dessert wine, and share amazing, just the Grand Crus of Bordeaux or the Grosse Gewachs of Germany. So today we have 6 different producers. We're here in Aspen, Colorado. Both Greg and I are longtime sommeliers and in the business. SomGeo, and SomGeo is basically kind of a combination of mapping and Google Earth that goes together. Pretty much a lifetime educator, and is very fascinating with his things. Lasers for about the last 20 years, but also I'm ex-chairman of the Court of Greg passed all 3 parts of the master's exam on his first try, and he is now the creator again of SomGeo. So Clink Different today has put us all. Augustin Lacaille is not going to be with us today, unfortunately. He had a funeral to go to. But then we are going to go down to Soleil about her great wine, and then we're going to go south about her fine red blend. And then we're going to go south into Germany. There we'll go through his beautiful Weissburgunder. And then we will go up to the Rheinhessen, where Baptiste Moreau will take us to Louis Guntram and talk about the beautiful Riesling they have there. And then we'll finish up with
exploring the lesser known wines of both Bordeaux as well as Germany. Absolutely amazing values. Both Bordeaux and Germany have some of the wine world's deepest history, both Bordeaux and Germany. And both have an amazing scope of and exciting things going on with both. So we'll head through, we'll start in France, but just to give you the lay of the land, we have our German wine regions just here. You can see some of the great cities of the world, Berlin and Munich, Frankfurt, near the Rheingau, Dijon, Paris. We'll head over to France. We're exploring the great wines of Bordeaux today, but as you can see, we have Champagne, Burgundy, all the way down through Beaujolais, the Northern Rhone, Southern Rhone, and but on the west side of the country, we're exploring the wines of Bordeaux. And Bordeaux has over 50 appellations. It's a large area and really creates a wide multitude of different styles. People sometimes think of Bordeaux monolithically, but if you look, I mean, this is 100 kilometers just down to Sauternes, 120 to the edge of Entre-deux-Mers. It's a large area with a lot of different wine styles that can be produced there. Now headed into the vineyard itself, really some amazing wines coming out. It's an amazing estate.
That's interesting that this wine came up, because I actually import this wine into Colorado. And, I actually, the importer that is importing this wine into California is the same importer that I use, which is Fruit of the Vines and Twins, which is interesting. So this is a pretty cool property, established originally in 1564. So you can see that there's, quite a history in here. In the 1850s, the great book Cox and Ferret, if you've ever had that, it's quite a tome. It's a pretty cool book to have in your library. It basically lists most of the chateaux in Bordeaux, but they listed it as one of the most outstanding estates in Saint-Estèphe. Of course, they've just revitalized the Cru Bourgeois categories there, and if you're not aware, there's 3 different categories of Cru Bourgeois, which of course relate to the wineries that weren't classified in the 1855 classification. And there's 3 different tiers: Cru Bourgeois Exceptional, Cru Bourgeois Superior, and just Cru Bourgeois. Lillian Ladouille has been rated as Cru Bourgeois Exceptional, so the highest of the tier of the Cru Bourgeois. And you'll see that on the labels moving forward from 2018. Long history in this vineyard, old vines. You can actually, it's really not too far from Cosse-Estrenel or Lafitte. And, again, really great drainage there as well. The Lorenzetti family took over this property in 2008, and they actually replanted and realigned many of the vineyards. With also the director, Emmanuel Cruz. Emmanuel Cruz, of course, is the director of the property. He also runs Chateau Dusson, Chateau Petitclos. And so they realigned some of the vineyards where it was mainly Merlot dominant in years past. This 2018 vintage is now Cabernet dominant. So with the wine that we're going to taste today, and besides, I just want to say that I'm really stunned with these 2018 Bordeauxs. They might be somewhat of a anomaly vintage, one of the warmer vintages, and some of the alcohol are high and the tannins are high. But I was there for Bordeaux and Premier and tasted most of the 2018s, and I am actually laying into 2018s myself because I really like the richness in the fruit and the subtlety and power of the tannins at the same time. So 2018s to me are really good American wines. They're kind of a cross between the old world and the new world because it was a little bit warmer. So this particular wine that we're going to taste today is 59% Cabernet, 30%, 37% Merlot, and 4% Petit Verdot. The wines are hand-picked, hand-sorted, vatting without pressing of fairly long cold maceration. And then or French oak for about 14 months, 40 to 60% new. They are committed to environmental values and organics. They have the rating of high environmental value, level 3, which is the highest level. And they have committed to go 100% organic by 2020. With the reconstruction, they bought some parcels from Chateau Clauset and Tour de Pez. And so to me, I think this is a great little property moving forward and always been a great value. Greg, do you want to state anything else before we get into tasting this wine?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to echo what you said, that a lot of that restructuring of the vineyard, I think, is really showing in the glass. And, they changed over the soil blend in a little bit by purchasing these new parcels, in that now the estate is about 80% on limestone soils, and also changed around the grape varieties as well. And also this just really speaks to the 2018 vintage. I mean, an anomaly vintage for sure. It was, wet basically all the way up until mid-June. Certain biodynamic estates like Chateau Palmer that year, they lost 75% of their fruit. And then the taps turned off and it turned parched summer. And these wines have this like opulence, they have this plushness. But to me, like compared to the nines, they also have like beautiful finesse. And I love this wine. It drinks great. At Jimmy's where I work, it's a steakhouse. And we sell a lot of Napa Cab as well as a lot of Bordeaux. And this is a wine that I think you could sell to either drinker, and they would be incredibly excited about it.
So when I get on the nose on this wine, I get that classic black fruit, black currant, black cherry, black raspberry, black plum. There's a kind of a rocky or earthy minerality, as well as a little bit of turned soil and a little bit of kind of a truffle smell to it. The wood comes through with some cinnamon and vanilla. There are some, pretty floral notes on this wine. And just at the end, just a little bit of a chocolate or chocolate mint. So, not herbal or pyrazинal as you might get from maybe a cooler vintage at all, but a beautiful kind of a light chocolate mint on the back end of it. Acid is just medium plus. Alcohol is on the higher side. Texture is really creamy and soft. That black fruit comes through with plum and actually a dark cherry and very, very rich. If you swallow the wine, you get a lot of cocoa mocha and chocolate coming through from the new oak. Very, very plush on the palate and a great wine. Now, for me, these kind of wines are perfect for wine by the glass. and value wines on wine lists, because Bordeaux doesn't have to be $70, $100, $200, and $300 a year cost. And Bordeaux is really hot out there in the market right now. I'm selling so much Bordeaux in Colorado, it's crazy. And so to me, having these wines that, sell, I mean, the suggested retail price on this is about $25. So, a wholesale or going wherever you're going with it, this is a great, great value. You think about what you can get with a property with this kind of history in the glass for under $25 is crazy. And when we think about Americans, we always think that we make the best wines in the world, or we do everything the best. But, our history, only goes back about 50, 60 years for great winemaking. And we have a lot to learn from these old world areas that have been producing these wines for a long time. And if you think about the value you get compared to what you could buy from Napa for the same price point, it's amazing.
Yeah, really pretty. I love that there's this slight red fruit component too, that to me really balances out a lot of Cab. Cab is often dominated by, darker fruit, but I really like that little tinge of red fruit that really gives it an extra layer.
Great wine. And I think, again, this could lay down for a while. So Greg, why don't you fly us down to Côtes de Bordeaux, Cadillac, and we're going to talk to Yumna in a minute, but why don't you give us a little overview, and then I'll explain what she's got going on, and we'll let her go.
Absolutely. So yes, we are going to head down to Côte de Bordeaux, Cadillac, but before then, we're headed right through the city in the heart of Bordeaux. I'm a huge fan of this city, always have an amazing time there. It's such a vibrant place that really has a lot going on. And, traveling through different wine regions, we always like to add in a little component of really the travel, right? And, you don't want to go to a wine region just to visit producers. So I asked, okay, what do we need to see in Saint-Quentin? And the Cave of Fossils. This just an incredible thing. These are all fossilated oyster shells from, I think, 22 million years or 22,000 years ago. And a pretty amazing site, and definitely worth heading to see on the way down. But we're headed to Entre de Mer, the largest wine growing area in Bordeaux. And they really do all styles here. They do white, red, claret, rosé, and also sweet wines. Also, much of the Bordeaux and Bordeaux Superior comes from this area. Although Entre de Mer AOP is for the dry white wines of the area. Merlot and Cabernet definitely excel here. And we head to Chateaubriac, and this, I really am excited to see this vineyard, because when you look at this, we have, you look in the lower right-hand corner, we can see the elevations range, and heading down this little hillside. And there's been a large-scale replanting from 2006 to 2014, where they moved parcels of Cabernet Sauvignon into the upper section just right here. And I'd love to hear more from you about that.
Hello.
Well, let me tell a little about, before we get started, Yumna, I want to say a few things too. First of all, this is a fantastic property. The chateau was built in 1755. Yumna herself is quite an interesting woman. She's a true citizen of the world. She was born in Lebanon. She lived in Ghana, Tunisia, Switzerland. After the Lebanese Civil War, she ended up being in London, where she became one of the most famous ice cream dessert makers, to the most demanding of the demanding. And she's also a painter, and she's a watercolorist. And they stayed at this property as a vacation home. The chateau was in disrepair itself. It was built in 1755, and she stayed in these guest houses. And somewhere along the line, her and her husband Tony decided to buy this property. And if you take a look at it on the website, it's amazing what they did. It is fantastic. They took this place that was in basically, kind of a wreck, and totally rebuilt it. They brought in Patrick Leon, the great winemaker from Chateau Mouton and Opus One, who I actually got to stay with at his house at La Trois Croix, and he means a lot to me. They also brought in Christine Sordas from Sauternes to help with the sweet wines of Cadillac. And these areas here are probably some of the best vineyards in all of the Entre de Mer. Of course, Cadillac itself, originally known for its sweet wines across the river from Sauternes, but also part of the Côtes de Bordeaux, where they make some of the great wines there. So we're excited about this wine and to have Yumna talk a little bit more about what she's got going on.
Thank you very much, Greg and Jay, to have me on this presentation. I mean, our story with Biac is really a story of falling in love with the place because it is quite extraordinary. The cherry on the cake, of course, was to find out from Bordeaux's most respected enologists and soil engineers that Biac was a gem and really one of the most unique properties in the sense that, first of all, if you had to tick all the boxes that a proper terroir has to have, well, it does. First of all, it's at a very high point falling into the River Garonne. It's 93 meters high at the top of the property, so we have extremely cool nights. The river, unlike in the Gironde, where in the Médoc and most of Bordeaux, the River Garonne does not flow parallel to the property. It actually is in the axis of the property. So the 25 acres that we have at this height, the shape of it is like an amphitheater. And when you come through the gates, I always say that you leave the world at the gates and you just fall into the river. And it's quite it's a magical, it's an moment. Most people just, we open the gates for visitors and we're there waiting and waiting and waiting and nobody shows up. It's because all the people who come through the gates will stop at the top and take photographs. It is quite stunning. The terroir, of course, has perfect exposure. It's southwest, high up, so it gets the first rays of sun to the last rays of sun. But the challenge and the actual beauty of it is that it is only in these 25 acres that we have. It's a mosaic of both right bank and left bank soils next to each other and literally next to each other. So it's like if somebody had made a mosaic and chosen these colors. So you have on less than 800 meters at the top of the property, you're going to go from left bank to Côte de Bordeaux soil, so from pure gravel to clay and chalk with high density gravel. Then you have a road, and then you go to pure clay, and then again to Côte de Bordeaux soils. And we have next to each other, which is extraordinary, every parcel is less than 2 hectares. In fact, some of them are a third of a hectare. So it's very much like a Burgundy soil terroir, much more than a Bordeaux typical terroir. Now, we fell in love with it. It really needed a lot of TLC. And because the previous owners, who'd only had it for 10 years, really grew disinterested from making wine and marketing it and let the winery fall to pieces. And the vineyard was tired. We have all the classic varietals. For the reds, we have Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and we introduced the Petit Verdot in 2008. And for the whites, for the dry white, we have Sauvignon Blanc, and for the sweet wine, we have the Semillon. And we treat every parcel as if it was a vineyard. So everything is vinified a bit like Burgundy style. Now, with the help of Patrick Léon and Christine Sourdès, we developed this replanting uh, plan until 2014, and we've sit, and now we're starting again because we wanted to keep some of the old vines. But it's very interesting to know that way back you were talking, Jay, about the Cox and Ferret book of reference on Bordeaux. Well, in the second edition of it, Biac is already quoted as making fine wines with great elegance and very fine wines. And there used to be a local appellation, and it was the first growth of this local appellation. So we just fell in love with this place, and we were never intending on making wine. But once we had been told that this by Patrick Léon, the potential of Biac, then we were faced with either doing absolutely nothing or really pulling our sleeves up and go for the whole nine miles. And that's what we did. And 15 years later, today, it's our anniversary here in Biac. We still learning, and we're looking to the future with confidence because we've been able to bring this property back to where we thought it belonged in the history of Bordeaux's fine wines.
So you make three different wines, right? You make, three different red wines. You make the Chateau Biac, you make the Chateau B Biac, and then you make the Felix that we are drinking today. Can you tell us about the wine we're drinking today, please?
Absolutely. Felix was a bit of a, Felix is a bit like the naughty cat. It was an afterthought. Originally, we only intended to do Chateau and B. But the difference between the three wines is simply in the structure. We don't allocate any parcel to any one wine. It's percentages of the parcels that we use in the chateau. And once we've really made the character of the chateau, then with what we have at the rest, we make B, etc., onto Felix. Felix was an afterthought, and it's actually proven to be usually, the chateau will introduce the other wines, but in our case, Felix has proven that it has introduced the property to many people because it is a very easy wine to drink, and we wanted it to be fresh and to be appealing, and yet to be light, so that today, for instance, it's very warm here, but you can drink Felix actually a little bit cool, and it doesn't lose in its depth and its structure at all. Felix was named after my coat of arms. I come from very old Lebanese family, which used to rule Lebanon, and the Felix, the coat of arms, what you would call in California a mountain cat, or in where you are, it's like a wild mountain cat, and this was the emblem of my family. So the children used to say, "Mommy, this is not a lion; it's Felix the cat," and this is why we named our little unexpected third child Felix.
That's great. I read in one of your interviews that you like to think that the Chateau Biac is the symphony, the B is the chamber music, and the Felix is singing in the shower. I really love the red fruit on this because it's 87% or 84% Merlot and 16% Cabernet Franc. So this wine has that beautiful, it has black fruit and red fruit, but that limestone minerality really coming through on it. Really, really well balanced. And like I say, pretty and delicious. That is so good. The oak regimen on it is it's all integrated, but not over the top. how long do you put this? What's the oak regiment here, Yumna?
Well, all the wines are aged at together at the same time, so it can take up to 16 months, but we don't have a rule. Just like the blends can change also because we adapt the blends to what the vintage has given on the property. And one day, because I'm not a professional, I had to really rethink everything that we had thought about, that we were doing to try and understand it. And one day a sommelier said, well, how are we going to recognize your wines if you change the blends? And it really, really made me think, okay, this is a very pertinent question. And that day my brother had called me. And I don't know if you have brothers or sisters, Jay, but I'm sure if you do, they're different from you. But you still look alike and you still also look like your parents. And this is how I explain how we approach the different blends that we do. The vineyard is the parents, and the vintage is the vintage is actually the child. So all the vintages, there are no two vintages the same. And what really ties them together is what the representation of the soil, the terroir, coming through the ripeness of the grapes and the aromas and everything that comes through with the wines. So it is a jazzy. Felix is our little, as I said, unexpected child, and it's the last child of the family who's always, trying to prove that he's just as good as the big guys. But he's fun. He's to be shared with people at the last minute whenever you feel, I really feel like having a few friends tonight. I'm not going to think too much. I take out Felix and I enjoy myself.
Well, excellent. Thanks so much for the beautiful overview of your beautiful property. I understand you have guest houses there that you rent to people, beautiful guest
That's
houses.
right.
And
Yes.
so if any of you folks are down there, please stop by and see her, rent one of her places, and then have a little vacation. And maybe you'll end up owning a vineyard too someday. Greg, any other comments you have?
No, I just think
you.
I think the wine's great. I love these wines that are just infinitely drinkable and, kind of invite you for another glass. And I just love the long-term vision that you have for this estate, and the fact that you've kind of fell into it and fell in love with this property, and have really taken the long view from there and put so much into just this incredible spot.
Well, excellent.
Can I just tell you that I think the first lesson we learned with Patrick Léon was that what we were doing today, because we didn't come from the wine world, but what we were doing today for the property, we were not going to see the end of it. And once you have accepted that fact, it changes your view. You're doing something not for yourself, but you're doing something to look after a property. And therefore you have a duty to look after it well and about it, and not in your own long term. And that was the greatest humility lesson that we learned.
Well, excellent. So now we're going to move a little farther south into the Entre de Mer. And Greg, can you take us for a little flyway? Thank you, Yuna. That was excellent. And I've almost drank all the wine, so I'll have to move on to the next slide. So, Greg, we're still in the Entre de Mer, but now we're rounding the corner down to the confluence of the Gironde and Dordogne there. Show us what we're doing there.
Absolutely. So we are headed just over more towards the east of the Entre de Mer. Once again, an area with a huge amount of versatility. They make white wines, red wines, sweet wines, but we're headed to the very far edge of the Bordeaux appellation, a little bit further away from the river influence, into really an area that's influenced by these great hillsides to Chateau Parenchère. And they have 188 contiguous hectares, 69 of which are planted. and these really nice clay limestone soils and these really beautiful hillside vineyard sites. Here we have the line demarcating Bordeaux in general. And we are going over, we're going to hear from, oh, look at this. This is a fantastic view of the estate. Here we have the chateau at the top and then just the beautifully manicured vines. Really incredible area, an area that I personally haven't been, and I'm certainly looking forward to checking out.
Well, great. And to talk about this wine today, we have Julia Gazanul. And Julia is the great granddaughter of Raphael Gazanui, who actually renovated the estate in 1958. She's the sales director of Perenchère. She works with the owner Perlanden and the director Richard Curte. Julia studied economics and spent a year in the USA. Georgetown University. She's traveled all over the world. She's the commercial manager of this beautiful property. This property is different, a lot of clay and limestone with some high clay in certain parts. There are 69 hectares planted with some 60-year-old vines. They do things as organic as possible. Again, they're certified high environmental value level 3. They're known for their red wines. And what else can I say? She has 32 different plots and 32 different vats. She uses micro-oxygenation. And Julia, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, you said most of it. So, so you described us very well. So yes, we are at the very east side of Bordeaux. Actually, it's a bit special from us because we are the last estate in this direction, inland toward Dordogne. Actually, the border of Bordeaux is in our estate. It's a small river, small part of the river called Le Signal. And Le Signal is the limit of Bordeaux in our direction. In front of us is Périgord Dordogne wines with Razac de Sausignac wines. So the estate is really chalk and clay soils. So that's a good element because it allows us to have a nice freshness in our soils. And everything is planted on the hillside. So as you said, the estate is very large. It's 188 hectares, the total size of the land. But it's divided between vineyards today and the forest. So we only kept the best plots to have the vineyard, and it's 69 hectares. So that's 170 acres of land. So it's quite a large estate for Bordeaux. It's quite in the large size of Bordeaux. And we are in the general Bordeaux appellation. Where we are based, there is a local appellation called Sainte-Foy Bordeaux. Some of you might know about it, but we decided to stick to the general Bordeaux Supérieur appellation, which is unfortunately the highest quality appellation we can get from where we are located. So we have mostly reds. What you're tasting, it's 69 hectares in total, and it's 63 of red varietals. But actually, also we've replanted. We've replanted some whites as well. So we have 6 hectares of white, and we are making a dry white as well. But we are originally known for the reds. And what you're tasting now is our Cuvée Raphael. So actually, this style of cuvée, as you said, we have 32 different plots and making 32 different wines. And that's my grandfather who already initiated this, because the chateau is very old. It's from the 16th century. And there was already vines there at Parenchère. And my grandfather purchased it in 58. It's just after the big frost of 56. So he had to replant the whole vineyard. And he was not coming from Lebanon as you, Yuma, but he was coming from Morocco. And he was already having vines in Morocco. And when he came in Parenchère, he really fell in love with this landscape and the size of the estate, where he could see that he could grow many things. So we had walnuts, we had apple, we had plum. We were making dried prunes. So at Parenchère, and my father focused on, his passion was wine, so he focused on the wine. And but they understood already in 58 that he wanted to have two plots. He knew the importance of the soils, And so we pushed that even further because now we are making soil analysis, very, very intense analysis with its famous people, Claude and Lydia Bourguignon, who helped us to really make a map of the estate and try to understand the best potential of each plot. So it's 59 hectares and 32 plots makes 32 different wines. And then we blend them together. And in general, we tend to produce only 2 different cuvées in red. The classic wine, Château de Parenchère. So the classic is mostly 25 years old vines, and we focus on the fruit. And our special cuvée is Cuvée Raphaël. So in the old time, we used to call the special cuvée in the name of the children we were born. And when my grandfather passed away, we decided to call the wine in his name every year the best wine. So it's a bit homage, as we would say in French, to him. So Cuvée Raphaël is 40 years old vines on average, and our best plots, and it's aging in French oak for 14 months. So at Parenchère, the oak is not the goal. So the Cuvée Raphaël is aging, I don't know if you're tasting at the same time, but you can feel the oak is there, but our goal is to have it very integrated and to have the fruits always very upfront. So you have the oak, which is there, subtle vanilla scents, a little bit toasty notes, but it's grilled notes mostly, but it's very subtle because what we are looking for is the fruit, the freshness. And we like generous wine, so you can feel that it's round and generous, but the freshness is always there thanks to the chalk and the clay that we have in our soils. And what's a particularity also of Parenchère is that in the reds we have, it's not very common. We are the very east side of Bordeaux, so more on the Saint-Émilion side, but even further. And we are special to have a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon. And actually, this Cuvée Raphaël that you're tasting now is 55% of Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's quite unusual where we are located to have so much Cabernet Sauvignon in general. But we really love the way the Cabernet expresses itself, the spiciness and the density, the complexity that Cabernet brings. So often in the Cuvée Raphaël, we have more Cabernet in the blend. So you can feel it here. And you have also 25% of Cabernet Franc, and the rest 20% is Merlot. So every year, this blend can change because the goal is to highlight, as I said, the best plots of each year. So sometimes it can be more Merlot, sometimes it's more Cabernet. So it really depends on what we think is the most interesting. Because when we try the different cuvées, we select the finest cuvée, but also the more dense, but the more elegant. So we are looking for a lot of different things. So fruit, freshness, but elegance, elegance, silky tannins, and you feel that in the wine. Personally, I love the 2016 because I think this time is starting to be at the right time. Everything is integrated, it's round and it's generous and it's fruity and easy to drink at the same time. So for me, it's a good time to start to drink this wine. Because we are only a Bordeaux Supérieur, unfortunately, we are by the classification. But in France, we have a lot of customers that keep those wines. The Parenchère wines are known to be very long for long lasting. So you can keep them. Cuvée Raphaël, in general, 15 years is the good aging potential for that wine. So, but I think 16 now is showing quite nice. So I hope you enjoy it too.
What a delicious wine. Now, so you use 100% Tronqué oak, is that correct?
Yes, only we use, actually, I'm sorry to say, we tried American oak, but it didn't, we make some tests. It didn't show great with our wines. Today, it's very interesting, the work we've been doing on the oak, because actually, before we used to have only one supplier of barrique, and it was always the same person from Troncé. And we made some tests with the new enologist, and we tried different styles, and they showed me some different tests with different barrels. And it was funny to see that I was tasting some barrels and I was saying, well, this one is so gorgeous, we should stick only to this supplier and this kind of toast. And then they showed me, yes, but wait. And they showed me the balance with even barrique that I didn't like. And the overall blend with different barrels was much more interesting, complex. And so now we have about 5 different suppliers. French oak for the oak. But we just put 30% new oak. We don't want more than that because we want the oak to be very subtle. So it's there, but you can see it's very integrated.
And you, can you explain the micro oxygenation process where you put little bubbles through the barrels? I don't know if
Yeah.
everyone really understands that. It softens the wine and keeps the tannins in check. What's the process there?
Yes, I think each vineyard has its own quality and faults, I would say. I mean, each one has its own type, and you need to play with that, and you need to think about what's your goal also. So at Parenchère, in the old time when my grandfather was making the wine, when Raphael, you had to wait, I would say, at least 6 years to start to drink them. So because naturally our wines are producing quite full-bodied wines, and with the tannins that are there. And now my father made a lot of work on having the tannins supple, smooth, and have the fruit a bit more upfront. So that's why we use the technique of micro-oxygen. So we try not to move the wine as less as we can. And instead of that, because you need to have some air in the wine, we add some oxygen directly in the tanks during the winemaking, but also during the aging process on the barrels. We don't move the wine at all. The Cuvée Raphael, once it's inside the barrels, it never moves. We only put the oxygen inside each barrel. So that's the way we do. For us, it's interesting because it's feeding the wines very softly, and it's keeping the fruit very alive. And also the color is very intense. So you don't have, you preserve all the aromas. So that's the technique that's fine for our wines. So we use only that. And you mentioned also, sorry, you mentioned, yeah, we are HEV certification, so high environmental value. And now we're starting the process to be organic. So it's a big challenge that we have nowadays to move in the organic certification. And we're starting mostly with this year now that we are facing, because we got a lot of rain this year and very humid. So we're fine with the mildew, but it was a challenging year to start. But we are making this move now to be organic. So it's a big investment for us. And we made some new wines also to have fun. So there's a new light rosé and also a sulfites-free wines that we just produced. So we're adding a bit more wines that we used to have before. So it's quite fun for us to have new things.
Well, excellent. The wine is lovely. 2016 now with 5 years on it is just perfect. Beautiful combination of red and black fruit. Love the minerality coming through. Love the integrated oak. Again, another super value. This wine is $24 suggested retail price. The Biak, I didn't give a price there, $22. Again, these are unbelievable values. That's why, there's so many great wines in Bordeaux, and especially, and from these great properties with great history. What do you want? We got a story. We got a great wine, delicious, perfect to drink for dinner, or perfect wine by the glass for people, I think. And you know who your importer is in California? I didn't get a list of importers. I guess I could look, I suppose, if I was smart.
We have a national importer called Winebow.
Winebow, there you go. Yeah, good contract.
Yeah, they purchased. They purchased. I think it was Henry Wine Group before that they purchased in California, and they changed the name to Winebow as well. So it's Winebow that imports us all over the country.
Well, excellent.
And it's been like this for 20 years. So
Greg, any more comments you got here on this one, or we moved to Germany? I mean, I'm almost out of this one now. I'm going to have to go to.
I mean, the only thing I'd have to add, because you both summed it up so great, but amazing amount of generosity, but it's super balanced, really well-made wine. As a wine director, I love wines like this because they taste like they cost 2 or 3 times more than they actually do. So they always have a place in the program.
I don't make a good job as a seller, I guess.
But it is. I mean, you think about where else in the world that you can get a wine that costs this much, that's this well made, and also has the history. It's, I can't really think of anywhere else. And, there's nothing from California that in this price range, I think really competes with this.
Thank you.
Well, excellent. That was fun. We're going to move away from Bordeaux. We're going to go to the German side of the tasting today. we are going down south to Weinget-Bercher. And Greg, can you give us a little overview of where we're going here?
Absolutely. So we are going over to Germany. Again, we're over through the north east corner of France, bordering with Alsace. We have Baden. Regions have a lot of similarities, shared grape varieties. Baden is perhaps less well known, but I think the wines there are absolutely stunning. We're going to head up through the Rhine-Hessen. We're going to go to the Rheingau to see Künzler. Here we